Turn around for me.
Will you let me pee on that road?
No, ma'am. Walk up to the jail in just a minute.
GloRilla was taken into custody on drug-related accusations on July 22nd. Although her incarceration was brief, it was anything from uneventful. Rumor has it that she was assaulted while being held shortly after being arrested. Who was responsible for the hit then, and what really transpired inside that prison? I have all the information. Let's get started. The catch: what's making headlines right now is GloRilla being assaulted in prison. To be clear, however, this isn't just another tumultuous celebrity controversy. Having been dragged through the dirt, imprisoned on what many are calling false drug accusations, and allegedly beaten while incarcerated, this seems like the planned devastation of a budding black celebrity, all for being outspoken, prosperous, and unabashedly herself. And the most unsettling aspect, when it all began, she wasn't even at home. Let me explain. 3 trespassers allegedly broke into GloRilla's gated community house early on Sunday morning while she was performing at the WNBA All-Star Game in Indianapolis, allegedly to steal. They broke in at the dead of night. The situation now takes a sharp turn to the left. A gun is fired at the intruders by a resident of the residence, who is said to be a family member. They flee. The burglary has been halted, but when do the cops show up? What do they do instead of hurrying to secure the scene and find the suspects? The residence is raided. Examine the main bedroom. They claim that they discovered more than 2.8 pounds of THC wax and marijuana therein. Not the intruders. Not the TRESPASSERS. After discovering cannabis, they attacked GloRilla. Take a moment to process it. She was the one arrested when robbers broke into her house. GloRilla was performing hundreds of miles away, energizing a yelling stadium audience at the WNBA All-Star Game in Indianapolis. When cops searched her opulent Forsyth County house, it couldn't have come at a more terrible or more fortuitous time. Her lawyer referred to the arrest as unbelievable right away, saying that she was obviously the victim of a crime rather than a culprit. GloRilla also didn't flee or hide. She surrendered. The cost? A bond of $22,000. Within minutes, the mugshot went viral. Social media took off. Her comments were bombarded with allegations from trolls like wildfire. Memes spread. GloRilla arrested in marijuana raid replaced the headline: star rapper performs at WNBA All-Star Game. Overnight, she is used to being scrutinized. She was detained in another suspicious manner a little more than a year ago. GloRilla was expected to have a typical evening drive, whether from a private gathering, studio, or performance. However, the whole incident was captured on police body cam film that is already making the rounds on YouTube. As authorities start interrogating her, a very surprised GloRilla is stopped on the video. Slurring a little and seeming bewildered at first, she attempts to dismiss the experience by saying, "I'm cold."
Not only can I smell alcohol coming from your breath, but I can also smell marijuana.
However, the topic changes when the cops ask her how many drinks she has had. She alternates between stating 4-7 and "I'm not drunk." However, the officer's reaction is calculating and icy. GloRilla then confesses something a few seconds later that elevates a DUI to a possible felony.
Not only can I smell alcohol coming from your breath, but I can also smell marijuana coming from this car.
Yes, she did say that herself. And this was the point at which her destiny was decided for. A lot of spectators, she tries to argue, but the officer intervenes to make the arrest. She was booked in an instant. However, this most recent incident, this has nothing to do with careless driving or traffic stops. This has to do with focusing, because rumors started to circulate from within the Forsyth County Jail shortly after GloRilla was placed under arrest.
Turn around for me.
Yeah.
Listen,
Okay, I'm gonna take the test. I'm gonna take the test.
That doesn't change anything. You still are going to be arrested.
For what? You don't have any proof on me.
No, ma'am, I do.
She was engaged in a violent confrontation with another prisoner, according to sources close to the institution. She had obvious injuries, such as bruises and probably a cracked lip, and guards saw the incident. It is possible that she was singled out because of her identity. Take a moment to process it, despite not being there. When narcotics were found at her home, a famous person is arrested and subsequently beaten while in detention. A bland public statement from Sheriff Ron Freeman seems more like a legal disclaimer than an act of responsibility. Let's dissect it then. They admit that she is a victim, that her privacy was invaded, that her home was broken into, that armed invaders had to be fired at to leave her home, but she's still left in handcuffs. And now it's her leaving the prison. Battered. This has nothing to do with marijuana. Power is at issue. Here. About making success a crime. About what happens when a Memphis-born black woman climbs to a level that white America cannot tolerate: too high, too fast, and too loud. Assault. The events that transpired inside the prison cell were not arbitrary. It wasn't simply bad luck. It was unavoidable because the story was no longer about a break-in. As soon as GloRilla's name appeared in the booking system, it had nothing to do with the real culprits who broke into her house and stole expensive jewels. The focus shifted to breaking her down. A lady who walked the stages at award shows. A lady who texted Rihanna in private in Beyoncé's dressing room. A lady reportedly broke down in tears. Another prisoner, now stripped of her high-end heels and chains, crashed into a picture of a cup. Additionally, jailhouse sources have said that they were singled out for brutality, humiliation, and isolation. I had barely been processed into the Forsyth County Jail when the assault occurred, speaking on condition of anonymity. Sources close to the case said that other prisoners recognized GloRilla right away, and not out of adoration, but rather out of jealousy, hatred, and sometimes even malice. As soon as she entered, she became a target, according to a Memphis blogger who has written on conditions in Georgia prisons. One former inmate said, "The guards didn't separate her. She was thrown into the regular crowd as if she were unimportant." Within minutes, a verbal confrontation escalated. Sources claim that GloRilla was intimidated, made fun of, and verbally abused. Another lady allegedly made fun of her music and called her a phony gangster, while another allegedly shouted at her, "Oh, you're not too famous to get touched." You could see the setup approaching from a great distance, and because this is a prison, nobody intervened to stop it. Furthermore, being famous while incarcerated is a target on your back, not a shield. One inmate is accused of starting a violent fight by punching her and yanking her hair. One report claims that Glo struck her head on a concrete wall during the altercation. Another said that by the time the cops arrived, she was obviously upset and had a split lip. The most startling aspect, however, is this: there is no proof that she was treated medically, no trip to the hospital, no incidents being acknowledged in public. Despite the fast increasing social media clamor, the Forsyth County Jail has not released a comment. Even more vicious than the actual assault is the institutional gaslighting that occurs after such instances. The system conveys a clear message by denying what happened and acting as if it never happened. Your suffering is inconsequential. It doesn't matter how safe you are. Additionally, your voice will be muffled. They do this by breaking victims mentally as well as physically, causing them to doubt their own reality. The way this reflects how black women are treated is really ominous. From slavery to the present, black women's suffering has been downplayed, their voices disregarded, and their stories removed from official documents throughout American history, through prison systems, media narratives, and industrial gatekeepers. The same forces that previously denied enslaved women their fundamental humanity today exert their influence. Let's examine her legal predicament in Georgia in more detail. Possession of marijuana for a felony starts at 1 ounce. In addition to 2 jars of THC wax, deputies said they discovered over 3 pounds in her bedroom. However, the weight is not the legal issue. The absence of immediate possession is the cause. GloRilla was performing out of state when the raid occurred. She wasn't there. She did not have the medications on her person. Most significantly, the residence was occupied by someone else. According to her lawyers, the house had many tenants while she was overseas, and a family member had been sleeping there. Why therefore did the police just blame her for the drugs? Because being a celebrity has both advantages and disadvantages in the American legal system. Your name matters if you're well-known, however. It is simpler to arrest a well-known person when it comes to criminal accusations. Remember that there is a violent history of racial discrimination in Forsyth County. It has only made an effort in recent decades to overcome its reputation for having an all-white population and for violently evicting black households in the early 1900s. But there are still traces. Furthermore, you are doing more than just upholding the law when you arrest a black lady like GloRilla and display her mug on TV and in the news. You're communicating. The location of the target seems purposeful. Not just any jurisdiction is Forsyth County. Racial terror used to be freely practiced there. Where orchestrated violence forced black families to leave, where memories of ethnic cleansing and lynchings are buried in the earth itself. GloRilla's land ownership, success, and presence as a strong black woman there go against every tenet upon which the county was established. The reaction of the judicial system demonstrates the underlying anxiety that our achievement symbolizes. This lady managed to break out from the violent and impoverished cycles that the system uses to defend its survival. She survived, purchased real estate in their exclusive communities, and had the courage to live boldly and honestly. The narrative that sustains repressive regimes is threatened by such a success tale. What about the industry? Quiet days before, she was booked by WNBA representatives. Where were they now? The streaming services that profited from her TikTok virality were nowhere to be seen. The musicians she referred to as mentors, who shared her music and tales, congratulated her on her Grammy nomination, and uploaded pictures, were nowhere to be found. Not at all, because black women all vanish when the system comes for them. This is nothing new. When Megan Thee Stallion was publicly questioned about her trauma, we saw it. When Cardi B's background was used as a weapon, we saw it. However, the fact that GloRilla's arrest had nothing to do with violence, firearms, or confrontation makes this seem even more unnatural. It was marijuana. The same cannabis that white celebs have smoked while being filmed, introduced new product lines, even made light of when interviewed. Seth Rogen has a cannabis business. During her concerts, Miley Cyrus has shown her usage of cannabis. However, for being close to it, she risks criminal charges. Selective criminalization is what this is. Additionally, it's a part of a larger trend than the media would want to acknowledge. When you look at the larger picture of cannabis legalization in America, the double standard becomes even more obvious. GloRilla is charged with a crime, yet individuals who don't resemble her have created whole businesses around marijuana. Venture investors, software entrepreneurs, and celebrity endorsers, the majority of whom are white, have gained billionaires thanks to the same plant that threatens to ruin her life. The fact that the war on drugs has always been a battle on certain groups is much more pernicious when sold to other groups. The same drugs that put black women behind bars are transformed as wellness products and artisanal experiences. GloRilla's situation is not unique. The system is operating just as intended. Her arrest's timing also calls into question how law enforcement and business interests are coordinated, because when musicians get too pliant, too outspoken, or too strong, convenient legal issues seem to come up somehow. It seems choreographed because of how constant the pattern is. Build them up, allow them to settle in. Then, when they begin to assert excessive authority over their own story, destroy them. GloRilla, however, did not die in silence. She attacked the system on social media after bonding out for $22,000. They concentrate on some cannabis rather than tracking out the suspects. In summary, I am the sole one arrested after my house is broken into. GloRilla via Xer supporters reacted angrily. Within hours, #HashFreeGlo became popular. Protests evolved from memes, blogs, began to make connections since it was obvious. This was not only a poor arrest, that it was a takedown. She was direct in her 2024 interview with 360 with Speedy.
It feel good, actually. I love it. Like, it help you. And sometimes, like, we need to hear people talk or criticism and shit. And so it can make us remember, okay, I got to get back on my, you know what I'm saying, on my P and turn back.
It was foretelling because she always shows up. Even when others question her, she shows up. Even when she is the target of vitriol. Even when the establishment attempts to conceal her behind walls made of concrete, she shows up. However, in order to fully comprehend the significance of what transpired in that detention cell in Forsyth County, you must return before the mugshot. That is prior to the shackling. Before the hashtags and dates of the court, hallelujah must be the first thing you say, not the prayer. The name Woods. Gloria Hallelujah, a girl from North Memphis's Fraser area. 1 of 10 siblings. A crazy fantasy. A devotion to God, and a passion of music that is perhaps more profound. No label, no cash, no studio, only a dream. And a movement followed. In order to really comprehend the sorrow, you must realize the struggles she endured to reach this point, because GloRilla did not get success. She started from scratch. She has always been honest about the fact that she didn't have much growing up. She and her siblings were sleeping on air mattresses. Crowded residences. Her mother is raising 10 kids with faith and perseverance. Hallelujah. Her unusual name wasn't a coincidence. Her mother marked her. She once said, there was always something off about her. It's termed, not special. She was anchored to something greater by that name. A feeling of direction, a feeling of fate. She grew up in a church, participated in choirs by singing. She also briefly considered becoming a gospel performer. However, she was also raised in a noisy environment. There was poverty, that the violence was near, and she turned to music as an escape. In high school, she took rapping seriously and went under the moniker Big Glow. The first tracks were UNPOLISHED.
It's called Glow's Prayer. I'm praying to God, like, God, please don't ever let me do that again.
Homemade images, homemade music, Memphis slang, and ghetto allusions abound in the lyrics. However, she had something that you couldn't teach. A voice that broke through the cacophony. She delivered it with hunger, a pause-inducing presence. On camera, she lacked polish. She didn't have any industrial training. She was genuine. However, GloRilla and producer Hitkid released FNF in April 22. It was not intended to be a #1 song. It was intended to be a summertime anthem, a gritty, high-octane song about female friendship, independence, and emancipation. The kind of music that blares from speakers at backyard barbecues and stoplights, and it blew up in a matter of weeks. TikTok made it well known. The hook was being chanted by women nationwide like a battle cry. I'm FKN *, a free FRE. It exploded as soon as it fell. The music video, low spending limit. Filmed among her homegirls in Memphis. Atop automobiles. Hood. TWERKING. Yelling into the lens. However, it was the secret. It resembled us. Genuine. Out loud. Dark. Southern. Hood. Free. The industry was unable to overlook it. FNF had amassed tens of millions of streams by the end of the summer. GloRilla was also praised as the year's breakthrough talent. The cosigns followed. Cardi B made a statement. The song Tomorrow 2 was released. It became a viral sensation after making its debut in the Billboard Top 10. The BET performances followed. The nominations for awards followed. Then she broke down in tears in Beyoncé's dressing room. She wasn't faking it. She was not being humble. She felt overpowered because during tattoo sessions, the same girl who used to watch Bad Girls Club on her phone, now sharing the stage with her idols. But viral publicity wasn't the only factor in her ascension. She was receiving genuine recognition. A Best Rap Performance Grammy nomination, wins the BET Hip Hop Award, a record contract allegedly worth over $500,000 with Yo Gotti's CMG, and inclusion on the lineups of almost all major music festivals in 2023. GloRilla was now more than simply an artist. She was a name. Her slang was unique, memes of her own fashion sense. Her distinctive, audacious, and memorable voice became her trademark, and she became the property of women all around the nation, particularly young black women. She demonstrated that you didn't need to be well-groomed, suburban, or prepared for the workforce to succeed. All you needed to do was be yourself. Nevertheless, there were red flags, because something more profound came out when GloRilla began discussing how difficult it was for her to love, how much heartache she held, and how she had previously experienced pain. She was mending even at the height of her fame, because the trauma is not erased by celebrity, it makes it larger. She even participated in a public 60-day celibacy challenge in an attempt to purify herself.
It was 60.
60 day.
Yeah.
60 day. What made you want to lock in and do a 60-day celibacy?
Emotionally and spiritually from the turmoil in her life. This was more than simply a wave-riding artist. As the world looked on and passed judgment, this lady was reconstructing herself in real time. Her weakness turned into both a strength and a weakness. GloRilla's transparency made her accessible to fans, but suspect to business. Gatekeepers in a society that rewards authenticity but penalizes honesty. For female celebrities like GloRilla, the scrutiny that accompanies celebrity is especially harsh. Every action is tracked. Every connection is examined. Each error grew in size. When things go wrong, the same genuineness that made her renowned turns into the rope that hangs her because she was too genuine. She couldn't be the ideal victim. Too human, too forthright about her shortcomings. That's why her arrest was so shocking, because we seen her getting up. We saw her battling. We saw her survive. Then they charged her with a crime. However, GloRilla's arrest wasn't an isolated incident. The police raid on her home wasn't the beginning of it. Long before that, it began. Because as soon as GloRilla gained notoriety, the clock began to tick. When she had become too loud, she ticked on Hood. Too sexual, too genuine, and after a while, too risky. She is only the most recent in a long line of female rappers who were discarded by the business. The destructive apparatus remains constant. They start by extracting all of the energy that can be sold. Their agony is packaged for public consumption. Their gestures are studied, and their lingo is appropriated. Then, when the women call for equitable pay, artistic authority, or fundamental human rights, they abruptly turn into difficult, problematic, or unmarketable. It's not a coincidence. It's a deliberate structure created to prevent black women from gaining the type of authority that would challenge established hierarchies by swiftly moving through artists and letting them go before they have a chance to establish long-term success or impact. The industry seems to embrace diversity while maintaining control. The plan? Foxy Brown. She was impenetrable at one time, a young sensation with a legendary image and unparalleled lyrical talent. Signed while 16-18 is multi-platinum. Next came the media's fixation on her demeanor, her tantrums, and her legal issues. Additionally, as she started to lose her hearing, a terrible and very private medical issue, did the industry support her? No, they abandoned her. Another pioneer is Brett, the first solo female rapper to achieve platinum status. However, things changed when she was detained for a scuffle at a bar in 2007. Her tenure was 3 years. What about the industry? Quiet, not a single welcome home. No red carpet, no label sales. A poetic monster is Remy Ma, one of the few people who could compete with the finest. However, her creativity was not covered by the media when she was given an 8-year term in 2008. Hid her anger. Her image as a gangster. The Megan Thee Stallion is still going strong, still engaged in combat. Let's face it though, she never truly bounced back from her ordeal with Tory Lanez. She was shot. She appeared in court. She prevailed. What action did the industry take? They betrayed her. Men made fun of her. She was accused of lying by blogs. She stopped receiving calls from other musicians who referred to her as their sister. Perhaps the most sad of all is Azealia Banks. Unquestionably brilliant, imaginative, fearless, unfiltered, and it was that last uncensored statement that led to her being publicly condemned. She refused to stop talking, which made her unmarketable. In real time, she exposed industry duplicity, bigotry, and colorism. No PR filter, no script from the industry. What action did the system take? She became the subject of their jokes. Azealia Banks' demonization serves as a cautionary tale. If you discuss systemic problems too loudly, you risk being labeled difficult or crazy. Her story demonstrates how the business uses stigma around mental health as a weapon, making righteous rage a pathology while safeguarding the systems responsible for it. The way these women's justifiable complaints are reframed as personal shortcomings is particularly brutal. They are called paranoid when they expose prejudice. They are called divas when they insist on being treated fairly. They are referred to be unstable when they abuse others to avoid smiling. Even their followers sometimes fall for this severe gaslighting. What then? Do these ladies all share? They were really intelligent. They were of African descent. They made a lot of noise. Eventually, they turned into liabilities. Because female rappers are disposable in today's music business, they are permitted to succeed, but only temporarily. If they remain attractive, remain obedient, continue to make money, avoid problems. And the moment they veer off course, the moment they sob during an interview, insist on taking responsibility, or uncover a case, the device shuts down. Thus, we return to GloRilla. She is now at a crossroads. Her bail has been paid. Her name is popular. However, her career, dangling in mid-air. Because the reality is there is no offense for which she is being punished. She is being penalized for her identity. A girl without a polished voice. A girl who refuses to take responsibility for her lyrics, her anger, or her accent. A girl who would sooner suffer financial ruin than sell her soul. They were aware of what she stood for and it frightened them. Thus, they committed a criminal against her. They allowed her to be sent to prison. They allowed her to be destroyed by the blogs. But you know what? She remains upright. She is not alone. Either. She is continuing the legacy of all the women, the business, attempted to eradicate, and we're not going to let them win this time. GloRilla is not just a picture. Her accusations are not her. She is not the industry's silence or the bruises on her face. She is a generation's voice, one that is unconcerned with polish, respectability, or being close to whiteness. She exudes confidence in anarchy. She is grit and gospel. She is both triumphant and traumatized. She is the result of a black girl from the neighborhood, having such a strong sense of self-worth that her voice cannot be contained, not even in a prison cell. Furthermore, regardless of how this system feels about it, GloRilla continues to operate. Thank you for viewing. Take a look at the other videos shown. Remember to subscribe to 808 Truths as well.